Before you know it, we're back for another analysis here. It's the Cash Cows in the halves for 2025 NRL Fantasy. Well, why should you listen to me? I've helped plenty of people over the years now. This is my 5th year doing it. Came 101st 2 years ago. Unfortunately, fell to 750th last year. So I can help you get in the top 1,000 at a definite and near the top 100 right now in the last 2 years anyway. So Luke Metcalf to kick things off with a $441 $1,000 price point, the 33 average, and well, Mr. Number 7, how do you do? This is a guy that is fairly close to my heart. He's good mates with a few guys I've lived with and all the rest. So I should try and get the good oil, but I haven't done so as yet with Mr. Metcalf. But we'll find out. I think a little bit closer to the season. Let's hope. But he's a very, very fun pick. He's got a good run over the footy. Super fast, has that attacking flair, and that that little the knowledge of being in the right place at the right time, and obviously when you've got that type of speed, you can launch at the right time. The injury risk is high. To be fair, we have to be fair on that front. Last year was sort of like Pappy unluckiness with a tib fracture there, which wasn't great at all. Especially after he got the opportunity, he got his 4 or 5 games, whatever it was, before that injury came. And that's why he ended up with that 33. He came back for another couple of games at the end. But in those games, he's obviously not the main half. And the big thing right now, and the talk around him, is that if he's going to be the number 7 in this Was situation with Tomato Martin at 6, there's going to be more kicking up for grabs. It just has to be. He does have a 38.3 average at 6 in his career, and he hasn't been able to play halfback as yet. In that 38 average, there's not a hell of a lot of kicking in general play, which would be something that we are interested in if he was to be starting at 7 with someone like a Tomato Martin who's not a super well-noted kicker of the footy. But that 38 average means there is 5 points of value in his 6 starts, which includes some games as goal kicking like we saw last year. And it also includes a lot of games without him goal kicking. So there's that to keep in your mind as well. If Tanner Boyd's not there, it's very, very likely that Metcalf is a kicker, not an Adam Pompey or something like that. He is an attacking player. He's definitely relied on that across the years. And as I said, only a few goals in that sample size. But the big thing that gets me excited is that if he's 7, and that would mean that he's trusted to lead this team around and therefore kick goals and have probably between 5 and 10 points of general play kicking, which is only 150 to 300 meters. It's not a crazy amount. Even if it was the 150 to add to his sort of 50 that he has at the moment, it's 200 for a guy that should be main 7. That is not a lot to expect from someone in that type of role. And as Mitch was saying the other night, someone has to kick the football. It's going to be the same situation with Flanagan and Ilias as it's going to be with the Wars here with the Metcalf and Tomato Martin or Tanner Boyd. And we know if it's Tanner, he can kick for big numbers. If Tanner's not in the squad or not in the starting side, then it has to fall on one of these 2 guys. It's definitely not unreasonable to get 150 to 300 meters out of him off the boot. So I would be definitely keen if he got that spot. And the big thing here is that we get a trial this weekend to find out with the 2 of them playing together, with him and Tomato Martin, and we'll see who's doing the majority of the kicking in general play. If it is Luke Metcalf, then this is a type of mid-range guy that you could easily go into round 1 feeling comfortable with. Last year was more of a punt because he was playing with the Sean Johnson, and he's played at the Sharks with Sean Johnson at when he was at 6 and Johnson 7, and he's done the same thing at the Wars as well. So we know how dominant SJ's been in his last 3 or 4 years as a kicker in general play and goal kicker and all the rest. So that's the big interesting part with Metcalf. We get to see it this weekend, and I can't wait to see it on Friday night. Kyle Flanagan, $440K for him, and it's going to be a tale of the trials with him and Ilias. Who's going to kick more? And that's what we're looking at with all of the mid-range halves. Is going to be they're usually the second in charge, but if there happens to be an opportunity where one of these mid-range guys gets a chance to do the majority of in-play kicking, or they are able to earn goals somehow, or whatever it works out to be, because Flanagan's going to be in this Dragon side, he'll be number 2 in goal kicking. It'll be Val Holmes now, and then it'll be Flanagan following that. So last year was Lomax, but just replaces him with Holmes, and Flanagan's still number 2. When you're looking at Flanagan and Ilias, Flanagan has averaged more. So let's keep that in mind. And they're actually priced fairly similarly, unfortunately. Flanagan got 33 average last year. Ilias, he's been priced up to a 30 average, sitting at 400k. So think of that and keep that in mind when I'm talking about the two of them. But Flanagan has a 41.9 average at halfback, which includes his time at Sharkies to begin, and then the Roosters, and the last couple of years at the Dragons. But that's 189 kick meters with 1.9 goals. So you could take away that 4 points from goals, and you probably would be expecting, if he was to get the halfback jersey, an increase in kick meters. So there's definitely a little bit of a bump there, for potential for a bump in his average based on those two numbers not being egregious. And he also has a 34.6 average at 6, which includes 92 kick meters with 1 goal per game. So if Ilias was to take the majority of the kick meters, then we probably would see something similar to a 35, or similar to what he had last year. If he's on the left, he's likely to have Val Holmes next to him, which I think is really, really ideal for sure. And only had 63 kick meters per game last year next to Ben Hunt. So I think there's definitely some room for an increase. The question will be, is it a 40 plus average, or is it closer to the high 30s, even to the mid 30s if things don't go too great? And would it be worth it for you to have someone that really doesn't have a tremendous amount of upside in scoring? Like, it's not like he's going to come out 60, 60, 60, unless he was to get basically all the kicking and Ilias became a 5/8 style player. I don't think Ilias has really shown us a heap in terms of his ability to lead a team around. So I'm not sure if it's going to be Flanagan or if it will be Ilias in this scenario. But he's never been the dominant guy. He's had Hunt, he's had Keary, and he's had Burton. Although I will say, when he was at the Dogs... Sorry, I said Sharks. I think he might have been at Sharks Junior. Was that right? Anyway, Dogs was instead of the Sharks one. He had some moments there where they needed him to step up, I think, before Burton got there. And he was average in that one. But I think he's played better. Obviously, the Dogs were pretty poor then. But in this Dragon side and in the Rooster side, he played better in a better side. So there's that to think of. But he's had Hunt, Keary, and Burton next to him in those. So there's definitely growth to be had. But let's not predict, I don't think, until we have seen trials and both his and Lockie Ilias's usage rates. And so for Ilias, he has a career 33.5 average next to Walker, and they've priced him up to 30. So just that alone, in the 7 jersey, when he did kick a decent amount, which is 271 kick meters in that sample size. He also had a 37.6 average in 2023 before the tough start and injury last year, where he only scored 27 and 21. Before we get to that 37.6 would give him 7.5 points of value, obviously, and that is where it gets a little bit more ideal. But again, the question is going to be, does he get 270 kick meters with Flanagan? Cody Walker's not a big noted kicker. He's, that 150 to 300 type of guy. So is that going to be the same case with Flanagan? And we're kind of hoping for, at best, a 38 average from Ilias. That could be where it's at. And that's where you look at both these guys and you're like, oh, we probably need one of them to be dominant. Otherwise, it's not great viewing. Because that 27 and 21 last year, he obviously got dropped because of it. But that was with 328 kick meters. So, yeah, pretty rough to have that kind of base and score that poorly. And he did average 33 in 2022. So, not much value on that if he ends up down here with 246 kick meters. More excited about Flanagan is if he's the dominant guy, because I think he can get closer to a 50. We've seen him have stretches of games where he can get to that point. They really just cooked Ilias's price, to be honest with you. So that's the tough part about all this. Ethan Sanders, 350k for him, which is fair. Yeah, because he only played a couple of games. He's got 35 and 33 in those 258 starts last year with big tackle numbers of 30 and 119 kick meters, 68.5 on the run meter side. And guys, we're going to see him move over to the Raiders this year, and there's some talk of him getting that 6 jersey, which now it looks like maybe not. Like Strange and Fogarty haven't been named, so if next week Strange is the 6, then I think we probably expect that to happen. If Strange is in centres next week, then I think this week with Sanders playing could be the audition, let's say, for him to kind of take that role next to Fogarty. if he does happen to get that opportunity at 350k, it's a little bit of value, but it doesn't feel incredible. With that 2 starts, you probably want him closer to the 300 mark or under that, and then you could look at it being a decent amount of value, similar to what we might look at with Sandon Smith a little bit later at 250k, where he doesn't have to score too much. He only has to get into the low 30s to be of great value. So we're unsure what it's going to be at this stage, but let's watch the trials this week, and then what gets named for them, more main team, I should say, in a couple of weeks' time or whenever they play next. I haven't looked as yet. But guys, if you are interested in that private group and me being able to help you, big prizes, top 10 analysis, where I go through how these guys won, how they got in the top 10, how our boys won, and basically give you the game plan on how to do it, which is really cool. So jump in the description, guys. All that information is there, and please do consider subscribing and hitting follow on podcasts. It's very, very helpful to get this out to as many people as possible in the preseason. That's the best way to support me. But Will Price, he has so much flair. He actually defended really well last year. He had 3 starts for an average of 48, which is very impressive. And if he does start, he has to be considered, to be honest with you. When I say considered, he probably has to be in our sides, even though there's risk in that at that 350 price. No pun intended, with the wing fullback duel as well. He ran the footy, 116 metres. He had 256 kick metres, which you probably expect some type of split with whoever he is going to be paired with. So I think that's huge, and let's just see what happens in the trials for him. And if he gets named round 1, I think he'll be in our sides, but it's probably a long shot at this stage of the season. For Jamie Humphries, there's a little bit of chatter around him potentially getting that 7 spot over Dodd, which there was at the beginning of last year, and how good are the beginning of last year, at the end of last year. What about the guns on him? He's obviously he's a Jamie, so he has to have big guns, clearly. But last year in Cup, he actually played 6, 7, and 9, and bench. 37.4 average across about 60 to 65 minutes from what I looked at. It's just estimating based on a bunch of bench 20s and 30s, a bunch of 80-minute games, a couple of high 60s. Yeah, you get the gist. But he had 1 game last year of 46, which had a try and 3 goals. So good, but that just bumps up his price, unfortunately, when you'd want him a little bit cheaper. So let's watch trials for position. If he's a 14, then we won't look at him. If he happens to be starting, then we'll have to delve in deeper, and maybe he can be someone that does kick a fair bit in general play and can be a good player for him. So that'll be fun. All right, Mr. Carter Gordon. Didn't play last year, obviously. 350k, comes over from Union. He had 4 games in Q Cup at the end of last year. 4 tries, 3 assists, 4 line breaks in 4 games. And he still only averaged 41. So that was pretty wild, to be honest. Run meters, his max game was 137, and he had a couple under 100. So that's where, that hurts him a bit. I think for him, if he gets picked, it's going to be hard to hold off. But do we know, and are we guessing based off trials? He could be the round 1 looper if it looks like he will get picked. I think, if you don't want to spend up on, I mentioned, Campbell and with guys like Keeney and Brimson and these types of players. If you want to go the cheaper guy as a bit of a loop, and if it looks like he's named in that trial team that is the main group, then he could be an interesting looper. Otherwise, I just think watch, see how he goes, Mr. Carter Gordon, and make a decision from there. Corey Pakes, we didn't get to speak about him in hooker because I didn't think he was in the frame, but Mr. Pat Carrigan says that Corey Pakes is likely to be the starter at this point, which is crazy. He's played a lot of years now, and he's only had 4 starts, which is a bit concerning in my opinion when you've got guys like Blake Moser and Billy Walters who have started or have big potential in this league, and Corey Pakes comes out of the clouds, so it doesn't excite me a lot, but it has to be considered. So in those 4 starts, he hit a 32.5 average in 57.5 minutes, and priced at 300k, it's about a 22. So it's hard to expect any more minutes than 57.5 with another hooker to be on the bench, very likely. So I would expect about 52, 50 minutes, something like that, 55 max, and about 30 points, which is 8 of value. It's okay, but definitely a lot of positional risk and all that kind of stuff, and at that cheap price, it can be worrying. I doubt he's going to improve too much as a player, but it just depends how Maguire uses him as well. He has a little bit of a better PPM in slightly less minutes, it goes to like 0.64 with lower minutes. If you go up to like playing over 40 minutes, it's 0.6 in 49 minutes, which gave him 29.4 points. And I'm expecting somewhere in that 40-odd range. There were games where it was 40-40, games where it was 45-35, games where Walter stayed on for 50 and Moser came on for 40. So different things like that could change things for sure. But it's not super exciting in my book. Has the dual half hooker, so that's fun for sure. But yeah, a little bit of value for someone that doesn't have a lot of upside. 3 to go. Sandon Smith, the big guy on the list, and I think most people are just going to have him in their side if he's named in round 1. We'll get to see him in trials, which will be good fun. He should get the 6 spot with the Chad. What a goat. Who does kick a lot. Mr. Townsend for sure. And we will expect Sandon to get a little bit for sure, but he did have 43 was the average in one game at 6, which included 28 tackles and 190 kick meters. Pretty good effort. 38.1 is his average in halfback starts over the past 2 seasons. So that's 7 games, 232 kick meters, 5 assists, 20 tackles, no tries. Pretty good. Pretty good. You can take that stat every day of the week, 38 in that. And look, we're probably going to expect a drop in kick meters. And I just think an early 30s average is pretty stock standard and pretty easy to have. Very, very easy. For someone at 250k, it's 12 points of value, 13 points of value. I think the price is 17 or something like that is 250k. So yeah, it's super easy to get him up there, and there's not much else we have to say. If he's named round 1, you have to have him in your side. It's as simple as that. Jack Cole. How good's this one? 250k for a guy that averaged 33.1 last year. And when he started, he absolutely crushed it. He averaged 44 in his 5/8 starts last year, and he's still the Panthers. It's not like he's changed teams. And yeah, I don't know what happened with his price. It was a weird one, and hopefully it benefits us at some point in the year, whether it's round 1 or whether it's a little bit later in the piece. But if he does happen to start next to Cleary, you lock him in. But he's named next to Schneider this weekend in the trial, and Talangi not named yet. So if we're expecting Talangi and Cleary to be named in the following trial, then yeah, you probably have to put a line through Cole and just wait for the opportunity to pounce if one of the guys gets injured. Can you imagine if it's Cole and Talangi or Cole and Schneider? Like it's going to be great like last year. He played games, it was Cole and Luai, and he averaged 44. I don't know if it was all of them, but I'm just saying, there were games last year when he started at 5/8 that Luai was halfback and he did great. So let's see what happens with Cole. And the guy I'm most excited for this season, it's Mr. Tom Duffy from the Cows. He's an absolute jet. It's great signs. We've got guys like him and Jackson Purdue, who I'll speak about in a following video, that have so much talent in waiting in the wings. And we do have a lot of guys at North Queensland that have that ability, which is awesome. So I personally can't wait to see him play for the Cows. But is he going to get the spot from round 1? He had a 48.7 average in Queensland Cup last year, 73% conversion rate, which is actually not as good as Drinkwater. So even if he plays, expect Drinkwater to do the goal kicking, especially given it would be Duffy's first year. If this was up near 80, I'd say Duffy gets it. But Drinkwater, I think, hit him at 78% last year for the 20 odd kicks or whatever he kicked last year, 20 odd from 30, whatever it was. Might have been less. No, this might be his career. I think it might be 30 odd or 40, something like that. Anyway, I'm just talking crap now. 33 assists last year for him in Cup, which is pretty wild, and a 90% tackle efficiency. So that's where the average comes in. Red hot. Super excited to see him play, as I said, and that's the cash cows for halves. Hope that really helped you guys. There's obviously Sandon Smith, which a lot of people are interested in. There's going to be guys like Humphreys, Price, Sanders, Gordon, Corey Pakes, whoever gets this kicking meters between the Dragons boys. And then if Metcalf gets a spot, there could easily be 2 or 3 cash cow halves that you could be selecting in your side, which is pretty incredible. So if you are looking for my rankings for the half position as a whole and how many guys I'm looking to grab, and obviously closer to the season, the more we know with trials and stuff, that gets more and more important. Knowing what the really high quality players in the private group as well are looking to do in their teams also. So all the information for that to get in that group with the prizes and everything is in the description. So thanks so much for watching again. Please subscribe and hit that notification bell if you haven't yet, and we'll see you in the next one.